I stood outside my sister's new mansion at 6:15 in the morning, and the first thing that hit me was the smell. Burnt meat. Not the good kind of smoky aroma that fills my pit every day, but the sharp, acrid stench of something gone terribly wrong. My phone still showed the text message from Megan the night before, the one where she told me I would make the whole thing stink. Funny how life works sometimes. When I walked through that backyard gate, Diana saw me and screamed. Before we get into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you have ever felt judged for what you do for a living, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to show you how a simple family barbecue turned into the moment I finally understood my own worth. My name is Nigel, and I own a small barbecue joint called Smoky Brothers on the outskirts of Austin, Texas. The place is nothing fancy. Just a converted gas station with a big smoker out back and about 15 tables inside. But that little shop is my whole world. I've been running it for 5 years now, and every rack of ribs, every slice of brisket, every drop of sauce carries a piece of my soul. I learned everything I know from my father. He was the one who taught me that good barbecue is not just about the meat or the smoke. It is about patience. It is about love. It is about understanding that some things cannot be rushed. Dad passed away 7 years ago, and opening this shop was my way of keeping him alive. Every morning when I fire up that smoker, I feel like he is standing right beside me. The shop got featured in a local food magazine 2 years back. They called our brisket one of the best in the county. That same year, I entered the Texas State Barbecue Championship and took home second place. Not bad for a guy who spent his 20s thinking he would never amount to anything. That trophy sits on the counter right next to a photo of my dad. He would have been proud. My sister Megan is 4 years older than me. Growing up, she was my protector. When kids at school made fun of my secondhand clothes, Megan was the one who told them to back off. When I failed my driver's test 3 times, she was the one who kept practicing with me until I finally passed. After Dad died, we became even closer. She was the only family I had left, besides some aunts and uncles scattered around Texas. Megan was there on opening day of Smoky Brothers. She showed up at 5 in the morning with a bucket of paint and a smile that could light up the whole state. We spent the entire night before the grand opening, repainting the walls, fixing the wobbly tables, and laughing about old memories. At one point, she accidentally knocked over a can of red paint, and we both just sat there on the floor covered in crimson splatters, laughing until our stomachs hurt. I remember thinking that nothing could ever come between us. Then Diana came along. Megan met her at an art exhibition about 18 months ago. Diana was a successful architect from Dallas, the kind of woman who wore designer clothes and drove a car that cost more than my entire shop. She came from old money, the type of family that had their name on buildings and hospital wings. When Megan first introduced us, Diana smiled and said all the right things. She complimented the shop, praised the brisket, told me I had a real gift. But something felt off. Her smile never quite reached her eyes. There was a coldness behind those polished words, like she was reading from a script she had memorized. I pushed the feeling aside because Megan looked happier than I had ever seen her. Who was I to question that they got engaged after 9 months of dating? The wedding was a massive affair at some fancy venue in Dallas. I wore a rented suit that did not quite fit right, and I felt out of place the entire time. But I danced at my sister's wedding and gave a toast that made her cry happy tears. That night I told myself that Diana just needed time to warm up to our family. I told myself that everything would be fine. After the wedding, things started to shift. Megan used to come by the shop every Sunday for lunch. Suddenly she was always busy. Diana had plans. Diana needed her for something. Diana. I tried not to take it personally. One evening I called Megan to see if she wanted to grab dinner. She put me on speaker while she was in the car, not realizing I could hear Diana in the background. Diana's voice was sharp and dismissive. She said my profession lacked sophistication. She said Megan should focus on building connections that mattered, not wasting time at some roadside smokehouse. Megan did not defend me. She just changed the subject. I hung up that night feeling like someone had punched me in the chest, but I kept telling myself it would get better. Diana was new to the family. She just needed time. 3 weeks before the annual family barbecue, I got a text from Aunt Gloria. She wanted to discuss the plans for this year's gathering. Our family has been doing this barbecue for 30 years. It started with my grandparents, and after they passed, Aunt Gloria took over as the host. Every summer we gather in her backyard, fire up the grills, and spend the whole day eating, laughing, and being a family. It is the one tradition we never miss. I texted back immediately, already excited. I had been working on a new dry rub recipe that I wanted to try out on the family. This barbecue was always my favorite day of the year. I had no idea that this year would be different. The trouble started at a family meeting 3 weeks before the barbecue. Diana announced that she wanted to host the gathering at her and Megan's new house. She made a whole presentation about it, showing pictures of their backyard, the pool, the outdoor kitchen that cost more than most people's cars. Aunt Gloria hesitated. She reminded everyone that we had been doing this at her place for 3 decades. It was tradition. Grandma Ruth sat quietly in her chair watching Diana with an expression I could not quite read. Diana was prepared for the pushback. She talked about how much more space they had, how the pool would be perfect for the kids, how she could hire a professional chef from a 5-star restaurant to handle all the food. Megan chimed in saying this could be a great way for Diana to bond with the family. One by one, people started nodding. Uncle Frank looked skeptical, but even he eventually shrugged and said he supposed it could not hurt to try something new. I raised my hand like I was back in school. I offered to bring my smoked brisket and ribs the same way Dad used to do every year. Before I could even finish the sentence, Diana cut me off. "That will not be necessary," she said. "I have already arranged for a professional catering team. We want this event to have a certain standard." The room went quiet. Uncle Frank cleared his throat and spoke up. He reminded everyone that my barbecue was part of the tradition. My father used to make those same dishes every single year. It would not feel right without them. Diana's response hit me like a slap. She smiled that cold smile of hers and said she appreciated the sentiment, but she wanted the party to have a more elevated experience. She actually used those words. Elevated experience. Like my food, like my father's recipes were somehow beneath her. I looked at Megan, waiting for her to say something. She stared at the floor and stayed silent. Grandma Ruth's eyes narrowed, but she did not speak. Not yet. I swallowed my pride and suggested maybe I could bring a dessert instead. Diana shook her head before I even finished. She had already ordered a cake from some famous bakery in Houston. Everything was taken care of. My contribution was not needed. The meeting ended shortly after that. I drove home feeling smaller than I had felt in years. 3 days before the barbecue, my phone buzzed with a text from Megan. I opened it expecting maybe an apology, or at least an explanation. Instead, I found something much worse. "Diana thinks it would be better if you did not come to the barbecue." I read those words 5 times, convinced I was misunderstanding something. I called Megan immediately. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice quiet and strained. I asked her what was going on. Why was I being uninvited from a family event? Megan stumbled over her words. She explained that Diana had invited some important colleagues and clients. She was worried about appearances. She thought my presence might make things uncomfortable. Uncomfortable how I demanded. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Megan said something that broke my heart. "Diana thinks your profession might give people the wrong impression. The smoke smell, the whole blue-collar thing. She just wants everything to be perfect." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with another message. This one was from Diana directly. "Let me be honest with you, Nigel. You would make the whole thing stink with that smoke pit job of yours. This is an important event, and I need people there who reflect the image I am trying to create. I'm sure you understand." I stared at that message until the words blurred. Then I read it again, and again. Each time felt like another knife sliding between my ribs. She was not just saying I was not welcome. She was saying I was an embarrassment. That my entire life's work, my father's legacy, was something shameful that needed to be hidden away. I tried calling Megan back, but she did not answer. She did not answer the next 3 times either. That night I called Uncle Frank and told him everything. His reaction was immediate and furious. He said he would talk to Diana himself, set things straight. I went to bed feeling like maybe someone would stand up for me. The next morning, Uncle Frank called back. His voice sounded defeated. Diana had told him that if anyone challenged her decisions, she would cancel the entire barbecue. She said she refused to be undermined in her own home. Megan had backed her up, asking everyone to just keep the peace. Aunt Gloria called me an hour later. She told me she was sorry, that she loved me, that this whole situation was wrong. But she also sounded helpless, like she did not know how to fix it. Then Grandma Ruth called. Her message was short. She just said 4 words before hanging up. I will not forget. That evening, I sat alone in my empty shop after closing time. The lights were off, except for the soft glow coming from the neon sign in the window. I stared at the photo of my dad on the wall. The one where he is standing in front of his first smoker, grinning like he had just won the lottery. "What would you do, Dad?" I whispered to the empty room. The door chimed, and Marcus walked in. He is my best friend, and the only employee I trust to run the pit when I am not there. He took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. I told him everything. About Diana, about the messages, about being banned from my own family's gathering. Marcus listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat down across from me and said something I will never forget. "Brother," he said, "do not let anyone define your worth. Not some woman who has known your family for 5 minutes. Not anyone. You know who you are. Your dad knew who you were. That is all that matters." I nodded, but the weight in my chest did not lift. Not yet. The night before the barbecue, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when my phone lit up. It was a text from Uncle Frank at 11:14 p.m. The caterer canceled. Some big wedding came up last minute, and they bailed. Diana is losing her mind trying to find someone else, but nobody is available this late. She decided she is going to do the barbecue herself. This ought to be interesting. I almost laughed. Almost. Diana had probably never touched a grill in her life. She thought barbecue was something you ordered from a restaurant, not a craft that took years to master. Part of me felt a bitter satisfaction knowing her perfect party was falling apart. My phone rang 30 minutes later. It was Megan. She was crying. Her voice came out in broken fragments between sobs. She said she was sorry, so sorry for everything. For the messages, for not defending me, for letting Diana push me away. She begged me to help. Diana had tried to start prepping the meat, but had no idea what she was doing. Everything was going wrong. The barbecue was going to be a disaster, and somehow it would become Megan's fault. I sat there in the darkness, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my sister cry. The same sister who used to make me soup when I was sick. The same sister who held me at our father's funeral when I could not stop shaking. She was far from perfect, and she had hurt me deeply. But she was still my sister. I told her I would think about it and hung up. Sleep did not come. I lay there for hours, turning the situation over in my mind. Diana had insulted me, humiliated me, tried to erase me from my own family. Every logical part of my brain told me to let her fail. Let her fancy party crash and burn. Let her learn what happens when you disrespect people. But then I thought about Aunt Gloria, who had been looking forward to this gathering all year. I thought about Grandma Ruth, who was 84 years old and might not have many more summers left. I thought about the kids who would be there expecting a fun day with their family. Did they deserve to suffer because of Diana's arrogance? At 3 a.m, I made my decision. I got dressed, drove to the shop, and called Marcus. He answered on the second ring, sounding groggy but alert. When I told him what I needed, he did not hesitate. He said he would be there in 20 minutes. We worked through the entire night. I pulled out the briskets I had been saving for a special occasion and started the rub. We mixed my father's secret sauce, the recipe he had spent 15 years perfecting. We loaded the smoker with hickory wood and got the temperature just right. The familiar sounds and smells filled the shop. The sizzle of fat rendering the sweet smoke curling through the air, the quiet satisfaction of doing something you were born to do. By 5:30 in this morning, everything was ready. Brisket ribs, pulled pork sausage links, 3 different kinds of sauce, coleslaw beans. Enough food to feed 50 people with plenty left over. Marcus helped me load everything into my truck. As I climbed into the driver's seat, he grabbed my arm. "You are doing the right thing," he said. "Not for Diana, for your family." I nodded and started the engine. The sun was just beginning to rise as I pulled out of the parking lot. I arrived at Diana's house at 6:15 a.m. The neighborhood was silent, all those massive houses still sleeping. But as I got closer, I saw the smoke. Not the good kind. Thick, black, angry smoke pouring from the backyard. The smell hit me as soon as I opened my truck door. Burnt meat. Ruined food. Disaster. I walked around the side of the house and through the gate into the backyard. The scene was worse than I had imagined. Diana stood in front of an enormous stainless steel grill, her face and clothes covered in black smudges. Her hair, which was always perfectly styled, stuck out in wild directions. She looked like she had been in a war and lost badly. On the grill sat 3 briskets that were completely destroyed. Charred black on the outside, probably raw on the inside. A tray of sausages had shriveled into something resembling coal. The ribs looked like dried leather. 6 hours until the guests arrived, and there was literally nothing edible to serve them. Megan sat on the back porch steps, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. The tables had been set up beautifully. White linens, fresh flowers, elegant place settings. A perfect stage for a party that had nothing to offer. Then Diana looked up and saw me. Her scream echoed off the walls of those fancy houses. It was not a scream of fear. It was shock and embarrassment and the horrified realization that the person she had banned was standing there witnessing her complete failure. "Get out!" she shouted. "Get out of my house right now!" I did not move. I did not yell back. I just stood there holding the first tray of brisket from my truck. Megan's head snapped up. She saw me, saw what I was carrying, and burst into fresh tears. But this time they looked different. She ran across the yard and threw her arms around me, nearly knocking the tray out of my hands. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry, Nigel. I'm so sorry." I held my sister with one arm and balanced the brisket with the other. Over her shoulder, I watched Diana's face cycle through a dozen emotions. Anger, confusion, humiliation, and finally something that might have been the beginning of shame. Uncle Frank and Aunt Gloria arrived around 7. They found me setting up my portable smoker to keep everything warm. Uncle Frank did not say a word. He just walked over, clapped me on the shoulder, and started helping me unload the truck. Diana stood off to the side, arms crossed, jaw tight. She looked like she wanted to argue but could not find the words. What could she say? I had the food. She had a pile of charcoal that used to be meat. At 9 o'clock, a car pulled into the driveway, and Grandma Ruth stepped out. She walked slowly into the backyard, taking in the scene with those sharp eyes that never missed anything. When she saw me standing at the smoker, a smile spread across her face. The first genuine smile I had seen all morning. She made her way over to where Diana was standing and stopped directly in front of her. The whole backyard seemed to hold its breath. "This," Grandma Ruth said, gesturing at me and the food and the family gathered around. "This is what a real gathering looks like. Not fancy decorations and hired strangers. Family taking care of family. That is what your fancy party was missing, Diana." Diana opened her mouth to respond, but Grandma Ruth raised one wrinkled hand and silenced her. "I have been watching you since you married my granddaughter." The old woman continued. "I have seen how you treat people you think are beneath you. I have done some checking, too. I know about the debts. I know about the financial troubles you have been hiding. I know you saw Megan as a solution to your problems." The color drained from Diana's face. Megan stepped forward, eyes wide with shock and confusion. She demanded to know what Grandma Ruth was talking about. Diana's perfect composure finally cracked. She admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, that she had been struggling financially. Some investments had gone bad. She owed money to people, but she swore, tears forming in her eyes, that she truly loved Megan. The financial situation was separate. She had never meant to deceive anyone. Megan stood frozen, processing this revelation. Finally, she spoke. She told Diana she needed time to think about everything, that they would talk later, But right now, there was a party to salvage. The barbecue happened. My food was a hit, just like it always was. Diana's colleagues showed up and raved about the brisket. Several of them asked for my business card. The kids splashed in the pool while the adults ate and laughed, and for a few hours, everything felt almost normal. I caught Diana looking at me several times throughout the day. Each time, she quickly looked away. I did not gloat. I did not rub her face in her failure. I just did what I came to do. I fed my family. After the last guest left and the sun began to set, Megan found me sitting alone on the back porch steps. She lowered herself down next to me, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "Not just for today or yesterday, for months of letting Diana come between us. For not standing up for you when I should have. For forgetting who has been there for me my whole life." I looked at my sister. Her makeup was smeared from crying. She looked exhausted and sad and lost. But she also looked like my Megan again, the one I had grown up with, the one who used to fight my battles before I learned to fight them myself. I told her I did not come here for an apology. I came because she is my sister, and I love her. Whatever happens with Diana, whatever she decides, that will never change. I will always be there for her. That is what family does. Megan leaned her head on my shoulder and cried quietly. I put my arm around her, and we sat there until the stars came out. A week later, Megan called with an update. She and Diana were going to couples counseling. Diana had come clean about all her financial issues and was working with an advisor to sort them out. It turned out the debts were not as catastrophic as Grandma Ruth had implied, but they were serious enough that Diana had been terrified and ashamed. Diana also sent me a message. A real apology this time, not the fake pleasantries I had heard before. She admitted she had been wrong to judge me wrong, to try to exclude me wrong, to think that money and status were what mattered. She asked if we could start over. I read that message several times. I was not ready to forgive her completely. Trust once broken takes time to rebuild. But I was willing to leave the door open. Holding on to anger would only poison me, not her. Forgiveness, I realized, was not about letting someone off the hook. It was about setting yourself free. I went back to my shop, back to my smoker, back to the life I had built. Everything looked the same as before, but I felt different. Lighter somehow. Clearer. Marcus noticed the change. He asked me what I had learned from the whole experience. I thought about it for a while before answering. I learned that sometimes people attack you not because of who you are, but because of who they are. Diana did not look down on me because my work was worthless. She looked down on me because she was scared and insecure and needed to feel superior to someone. Her cruelty said everything about her and nothing about me. I also learned that real family shows up when things get hard. Uncle Frank, Aunt Gloria, Grandma Ruth. They could not stop Diana from banning me, but they made sure I knew I was loved. They found ways to fight for me even when the odds were stacked against them. A month after the barbecue, Megan started coming to the shop again on Sundays. We would eat together and talk for hours, just like the old days. The distance between us slowly closed. One Sunday, Diana came with her. She walked through the door of Smokey Brothers looking nervous and out of place. I handed her a plate of brisket without saying much. She took one bite and her eyes widened. "This is incredible," she said, and I could tell she meant it. "We still have a long way to go, Diana and I. Maybe we will never be close, but we have reached an understanding. She no longer looks at me like I am something to be ashamed of. And I no longer feel the need to prove myself to her." That is the thing about self-worth. It cannot come from other people's approval. It has to come from inside. From knowing who you are and what you stand for. From doing good work and treating people right. From understanding that your value is not determined by your job title or your bank account or whether you fit into someone else's idea of success. There will always be people who try to make you feel small. They might be strangers. They might be coworkers. They might even be family. But their opinions do not define you. Only you get to decide what you are worth. And if someone ever tells you that you will make their party stink, maybe the best response is to show up with the best barbecue they have ever tasted in their lives. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been judged unfairly for what you do? Has someone ever tried to make you feel like you were not good enough? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, so you do not miss the next story. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope wherever you are, whatever you do for a living, you know that your work matters and you deserve to be treated with respect. Take care of yourselves and never let anyone dim your light.